Welcome to my Getting Started with Mac guide. If it's your first time ever using a Mac, or maybe you're a longtime user looking for a refresher and some new tips, this video will have everything you need to know. You'll see chapters down here at the bottom of the screen where you can jump to navigating the dock and menu bar, installing applications, or customizing your control center. Or if you just took your Mac out of the box, I'm going to walk you through the step-by-step process of setting it up. Now, this can't be an exhaustive video showing every single feature in Mac, but I'm going to be linking lots of other videos with QR codes on screen, and the links will be down in the video description that will dive deeper into the 35 new apps I install on every new Mac, how to really customize Safari and use it to the full potential, the powerful options in Control Center and shortcuts, and a ton more. So let's jump into setting up your new Mac. If you have something like the new MacBook Neo, a MacBook Air, or a MacBook Pro, when you open the lid for the first time, it should turn itself on. If it didn't turn itself on, just hold the power button. On many MacBooks, it's this top right button, which will also be our Touch ID to unlock. We'll get to that in a minute. Press any key to start the setup process. Choose your language, and then you can hit the return key here, or click the arrow here on screen in the bottom right corner. Next, select your region, click Continue. Now, I'm going to assume this is a new Mac and you don't have information you're wanting to transfer from another machine. Although if you did, or maybe you were upgrading, you can choose to transfer your data from another Mac, a Time Machine backup, or even transfer your information from a Windows PC. If you have an iPhone or iPad, you can also choose to set up with that device, which gets through the process a little faster. But we'll choose Setup as New, and no matter what option you choose, you can always migrate or transfer data later and connect it to your iPhone and iPad when we log into our iCloud account. Any accessibility features can be enabled here, but I'll click Not Now, and then you'll want to connect it to your home Wi-Fi network. I'll choose my network here, Minas Tirith, put in your password, and then click Join. It might prompt you to update your software. You can do that right now and then come back to this video when it's done updating. Just click Continue, it will download, and then update itself. Now that we're updated, we can continue the process. You'll see a message about data and privacy. We'll click Continue, and now we'll create our first account. This will be an administrator on the account, meaning it can make changes to other accounts and have access to everything. I typically put my full name in the first box. Account name can be shorter. There will be a main folder created on your Mac with this name, so I typically try to make it a little shorter, like first initial last name. This password should be something you remember, but also write this down in a safe place so you can always access it later. You can also choose to allow the account password to be reset with your Apple account. You might also know your Apple account as your iCloud account. It's the account you have signed in on an iPhone or iPad if you have those devices. And that means if you forget your account password for your Mac, as long as you're still logged in on those other devices, you'll be able to reset your Mac's password. We'll talk more about the Apple account in a moment. Now that I've set my password, I'll click Continue, and I'll leave this box checked for being able to change that account password from my Apple account. Now I'm prompted to sign in to my Apple account. Again, if you already created an Apple or iCloud account that you use on an iPhone or iPad, log in with that account here on your Mac. There are many features in the Apple ecosystem that work together across your devices, like Universal Clipboard, where you can copy something on your iPhone and then paste it on your Mac. Or when your text messages come into your iPhone, you can actually see and respond to them on your Mac, as long as you're signed into the same iCloud account. If you're not sure what your account is here on your iPhone or iPad, go to the Settings app on your iPhone, and then here at the very top, tap Your Name. At the top of this screen, you'll see the email address associated with your Apple account. You can also go into Sign In and Security and see more information about this Apple account. If this is your personal Mac and not a work Mac, I would highly recommend signing in with the same account that's on your iPhone or iPad onto this Mac. If you received a Mac from work and you need to keep your information separate, namely you don't want your personal text messages on your work MacBook or your photos syncing across both devices, then you might want to create a different Apple ID or just not set one up right now. You can always skip setting up an Apple ID for now by clicking Set Up Later here, but I'm going to sign in to my Apple ID, the same one that I have on my iPhone. Now, if you don't have or have never created an Apple account, you can do that right now. For that, you would choose Create New Apple Account. When you do that, you have the option to use a personal email you already have, like a Gmail or Outlook email address, but I would recommend setting up an @iCloud.com email. That's Apple's own email service, and if you ever need help with your Apple ID and Apple account, I find it easier to have your Apple ID connected to the Apple Mail account that they could help you with in something like the Apple Store. If you want to use your personal email like a Gmail, that's fine too. I just recommend and have my friends and family set up an @iCloud.com account. I put in my email and password for my Apple account, and then I receive a notification on my other Apple devices like my iPhone for a 6-digit verification code. Click Allow on your other devices, and then you'll get that 6-digit verification code. Put that in on the Mac that you're setting up, agree and read the terms of agreements, and now I'm logged into my Apple ID. There's lots of options here you can customize like location services, device analysis, the voice assistant, screen time. You can leave these as all default, and you can always change these settings later. If you have a new MacBook Neo or newer Mac, Apple Intelligence is an option. It can do things like summarize and proofread what you're writing, help with translation. I would choose to just set this up. It can also summarize notifications. If you're unsure about that, just click Setup later. I actually have my notifications summarized, and I just summarize everything. Some of those summaries can actually be pretty funny. If you have a Mac with Touch ID, the upgraded MacBook Neo, MacBook Air, and Pros all have it, you can set up your fingerprint to be able to unlock your Mac. Just place your finger, whichever one you'll use most often to unlock your Mac, on the Touch ID button here in the top right corner. You don't have to actually click the button down, you just rest your pointer on that Touch ID button and you'll see the lines of your fingerprint get filled out. Then you'll want to get the edges of your fingerprint. Just move your finger around, getting the bottom, right, top, and left edges of your finger, and then Touch ID will be ready to use. You can also set up Apple Pay, which is a way to buy things even on websites using cards that are saved in your Apple Wallet. I do add some of my debit and credit cards to Apple Pay, but we can also choose to set this up later. And now we've set up our Mac and we're ready to begin. Now you might have several apps asking for your location. The built-in calendar app, which I'll show you how to set up your accounts later. Location is helpful for things like travel times to your next event. So I'm going to choose Allow on that. And now we're ready to actually start using our Mac. I'm going to bring the screen a little closer here. And if it's your first time ever using a Mac, let me explain what's on the screen. At the very bottom, we have our dock of apps. We can actually change what apps are down here in the dock, which we'll get to in a moment. But Apple has placed some of the apps you might use most often. Something like email, Safari, which is the web browser on the Mac, the iWork suite, which is like PowerPoint, Excel, and Microsoft Word, but Apple calls them Keynote, Numbers, and Pages. And there's also the App Store where we can download more apps. If you already use an iPhone or iPad, some of these apps probably look familiar. We'll come back to the dock in a moment. You'll also see there's some widgets here on our desktop. Right here we have the weather, calendar widget, and a photos widget. We can customize what widgets are on our desktop as well. We'll leave those here for now. And then at the very top of the screen, you'll see what's called the menu bar. You'll see here in the very, very top left corner, there's a little Apple icon. And when we click it, we get a menu of options. We'll come back to this, especially system settings where a lot of preferences can be saved. But you'll see next to that, we have a menu option called Finder. Finder is actually the application we'll use to find all of our files, folders, and even other applications. More on that in a moment. As you get notifications on your Mac, you'll see them slide in here in the top right corner. You can dismiss them by clicking the X, and you can even choose things like turn off these notifications for this app. I'll click the X to dismiss this for now, because I want to show you here in the top right corner, this is where you'll have controls for things like Wi-Fi, and you can connect to a new Wi-Fi network. You'll see the battery if you have a MacBook, a magnifying glass for something called Spotlight. This is going to be very helpful in searching for apps, files, and folders, and we'll get into that more in a little bit. Next to that, we have the Control Center. This might look familiar if you already have an iPhone or iPad. This is also where you can change things like Wi-Fi settings, Bluetooth, sound and display options, and more. This is also customizable, which we'll get to. We have our date and time, which, strangely, when you click it, actually brings in our notifications here in the right-hand sidebar. Clicking that date and clock kind of brings in this sidebar that we can also add widgets to. I'm going to add a widget just so we can visually distinguish this. We see our widget pane pop up here. I'll actually put the weather widget here in the right-hand sidebar. Click Done. And now I have a weather widget that I can show and hide by clicking the day and time in the top right corner. That might have been a little fast, so let's go one by one. Now we'll get to the dock next, but before we do, there are some keys here at the top of the keyboard that I just want to make sure you know. If you have a MacBook like the MacBook Neo, you have some volume controls here in the top right corner. You can turn the volume up or down on the built-in speakers, or even mute using the mute key. You'll also see the speaker level appear in the top right corner as I change the volume. You have some play buttons here, like if you're playing music, play, pause, and skipping tracks. We can go into a do not disturb mode, which will turn off notifications. We have dictation, search, and if you want to adjust the brightness of your display, that's the F1 and F2 keys at the top right. You'll also notice if you're coming from a Windows machine, some of the keys are very different. Namely, you don't have a Windows key or seemingly an Alt key. On the Mac, we have different keys. They're called Command, Option, Control here on the left, and then an FN key. These buttons are also called Shift, which if you have a newer MacBook, the words have actually been taken off the keys, but this is the Shift button, Return button or Enter here on the right, Caps Lock on the left, Tab right here, and then the Delete key. Unlike the Delete key on a Windows laptop, which will delete the words in front of the cursor, this Delete key works like the backspace key on a Windows machine. Let's actually open an application so you can see what that looks like in real time. I'm going to open the Apple Notes app. Remember, if you have Apple Notes on an iPhone or iPad, your notes will automatically sync if you're signed into that same account. It's going to take a few minutes for all our notes to sync over, but while we wait for our notes to sync over, let's create a new note by clicking this Compose button here at the top of the window, and let's type something. You'll see our notes are coming in, but let's type Getting Started with Mac. And just to show you again, if I click the Delete key up here, you'll actually see it's going right to left, deleting the letters that we wrote. You'll also see we got a notification in the top right corner. It's once again asking if we want to get notifications from notes. You might collaborate with other people and want notifications when they make changes to a note, so I'm going to click Allow on this notification, and then it will go away. Apple Notes is a great place to just take notes, organize them into different folders, jot down ideas or brainstorming, anything you would use a regular Notes app for. I actually have an entire video on Apple Notes, which I'll link above and down in the video description. Now you might notice a couple things actually changed on our Mac once the Notes app opened. First, the widgets that were on our desktop have now blended into the background. You'll see they kind of adopted the color of our wallpaper. That's to help you focus on the application that's at the forefront. You'll also notice that the menu bar has changed. Rather than say Finder, it now says Notes. That's because when you use a Mac, whatever application is in the foreground or active in the front, then that application will appear here in the menu bar. And when I click either the Notes or File, Edit, View, these settings and options now apply to the application that I see in the foreground. So I'll actually see commands for the Notes app, like New Note or New Folder, Sharing a Note. And if I go over to Format, these are the options that will apply to the Notes app. Now, if I click away from the Notes app, watch what happens up here in the menu bar. I'll click on the desktop here on the right-hand side, and you'll see we've gone from Notes to now Finder. You'll see we have some little tips here that are showing up in Windows. I'm going to X that out. But when I click on the desktop, now even though the Notes app is open, you'll notice the menu bar says Finder. That's because even though a window is open for an application that I'm using, the Finder, which is the default application, or you think of it as like home base on your Mac, the Finder is now active. So you'll see those different options in the menu bar. Rather than New Note and formatting a note, we have the menus for the Finder application. And if I click back into the Notes app, the window right here, you'll see the menu bar now changed to Notes. This mechanism takes some getting used to, having the menu bar change depending on what app you're using, but keep in mind, whatever app is in the foreground or active, that's the application you're going to see up here in the menu bar. You also might notice if you're coming from Windows that the close, minimize, and expand the windows of an application is on the opposite side. If you wanted to close a window, you'll see the red X up here. If you wanted to minimize a window, there's a yellow minus sign. And if you wanted to expand a window to go full screen, you can click the green arrow. If you hold your mouse over that green button, you'll also notice there's different tiling options. If you want to put a window in the right 50% of your screen, fill the entire screen, and even more options. Let's say we want to minimize this window. I'll click the yellow minus stoplight, and now you'll see the Notes window actually went down into the dock. It's minimized here, and if I ever wanted to open it again, I can click it and the window will expand. You'll also notice when I minimize that application, the menu bar still stayed on the Notes app. I have to click on my desktop to go back to the Finder. Or I can click the Finder icon, which will always live down here in the dock where you see Finder. Click the little Finder face, and that will open a Finder window. A Finder window is like your file and folder explorer. Finder is where everything on your Mac is stored, whether that's files, applications you've installed or downloaded, things you've downloaded through Safari on the web browser, and if you've signed into your iCloud account, even files that are syncing on your desktop and documents are available here in the Finder. Now, before I dive into more explanation about the Finder, I'm going to switch to a screen recording rather than this camera shot so you can see everything I'm doing crystal clear. And for the rest of this video, I'm going to use this screen recording method, and you'll see me pop in and out of the video to help walk you through. Now let's get back to that Finder window. To open that Finder window again, click that Finder icon in the bottom left part of the dock. Now by default, a new Finder window opens to the Recents tab of your files. You'll see that here in the left-hand sidebar of the Finder. We can customize what this opens to and even add or remove things from this Finder sidebar. Towards the end of this video, I'll show you how I have my personal Mac set up and what my Finder looks like, but for now, we can leave this by default. If you have any folders you're collaborating or sharing with other people, you'll see that under the Shared tab. And then here under Favorites, you'll see Applications. Finder is also where you'll find apps that you've downloaded from the App Store or installed on other websites. I'll show you what it looks like to download and install an app in both places, but here we can go and search for and open applications on our Mac that we don't see in the dock here at the bottom. For instance, Podcasts is not here in the dock, but it is in fact an app that's on my Mac, and so I can open the Podcast app right here. Under Applications here in the left-hand sidebar, you'll see Desktop. Anytime you save files or create folders on your desktop, they'll be here, and Downloads is where your downloads will go from things like Safari, the web browser. You'll also see other locations here like iCloud Drive, which I mentioned before, the Home folder, which is where all the files and folders for a certain user will live. You'll see some different folder options here. You don't really have to visit here very often, and I would largely ignore this. And the same with Macintosh HD, which is like the full drive or SSD of your Mac. You don't want to delete any folders or files in here as it might disrupt how your computer works. So I would kind of ignore that Macintosh HD for now too. You also see some options like to AirDrop files and folders to other Apple devices that are nearby, any devices that might be on your network, and your trash, which is also in your dock. And finally at the bottom, you can actually create colored tags to help you organize your files and folders. Again, I'll show you how I have my Mac set up later in this video, which might explain some of that. Now, the Finder is very powerful. Not only do you manage your files and folders, but there's things like automations and just a lot of tools that are available. We won't go into all of that right now, but if you're interested, you can actually listen to this episode of my podcast, Mac Power Users, where we talk about the Finder in depth. I'll link it above and down in the description. But one option I do want to show you is, by default, the Finder is an icon view, meaning you'll see a large icon for all your files wherever you go in the Finder. There's also what's called a list view, so you can see everything in a folder in a list, and also what's called column view. In column view, you can see files and folders in one column, and then as you expand, you'll see deeper and deeper into your folders. I just wanted to point that out to show you that you can change how you view your icons, files, and folders in the Finder window. Then when we're ready to close the Finder, we can just click the red X in the top left corner. Now let's open another application that you're probably going to use most of the time, which is Safari. Safari on the Mac is the web browser, which you'll use to browse the entire internet. I'll click the Safari icon down here in the dock, and if you have some bookmarks or other data from your iPhone and iPad, you'll see those actually sync, like my bookmarks are already available. Now Safari is telling us that there's some extensions we can install. We won't get into that in this video, but I do have other videos about Safari and extensions, which I'll link above and down in the description. So I'll X out that little extensions portion. Now, if we just want to start browsing the web, we can click in the address bar here at the top and just type a website you want to go to, like beard.fm. That's my website, in case you were wondering. Now, like all other browsers, you can open new tabs or new windows when you're browsing websites. So let's say I want to keep beard.fm open, but I also want to open another website. Well, I can go up to the top right corner of my Safari window, click the plus icon, and then type in another web address. Or if I want to search Google, I can just type a search term here in the box. I'll just type my own name, and you'll see Google suggestions are here. Or if I just hit the return key on the keyboard, that will perform the Google search, and it will be live right here in Safari. So you don't have to go to google.com just to search. You can just type it in the address bar. And you'll see now that we have two tabs open, you have the Google search here in this tab, and we have the tab here where the previous website we had open. You can open as many tabs as you would like, but there are ways to organize those both in tab groups and even in Safari profiles. Again, I'll link a video above and down in the description that really goes in depth on Safari to help you make the most of it. But this should get you most of the way there to browsing the web. If you wanted to create another Safari window, you can do that as well. And as you'll notice, the menu bar switched. Rather than Finder or Notes, it now says Safari. And we have many more options here. For every application that you open on your Mac, you'll see the name of that application in the very top left corner next to the Apple icon. Here is where you'll find settings for every app. So if there's some settings that I want to adjust for Safari, I can click Settings here, and that will pop up a settings window. Now, there are many settings across all the different apps, which you can refer to my individual videos about those apps to learn more, but that's where you set preferences for each application. For instance, where do you want files to download? I have them sent to the Downloads folder. What homepage do you want to open when you open a new Safari window? A specific app settings is where you will find all that information. Now, let's say I wanted to go back to Notes, which we still have open. I'll click the Notes icon down here in the dock, and you'll see, again, the top left corner, rather than Safari, it now says Notes. And if I click Notes, you'll see a settings option again. I can click Settings, and I get lots of options here as well. So to adjust preferences for every app, you'll want to go to the app's name here in the menu bar, click it, and then go to Settings. And remember, you have all these different menus per app. So for the Notes, we have our new note option, new folder, and more. And if I click my Safari window, you'll see the menu bar has changed, and now I get other options. Like under File, I have options to open a new profile window. I can close this window, close all windows, or close the tab, and do things like Share, export as a PDF, and have lots of options here. There's also options under the Edit, View, History, and more. One little setting I like to change here in Safari, there is a Favorites bar where you can add bookmarks and they will always be visible in the Safari window. I like showing that Favorites bar, and now I have all my bookmarks in folders here at the top, and I can just click and visit one of those favorites. Other than that, this is basically how I use Safari. Now again, you can see all your tabs at a glance if you click this top right icon. Here's the Google search I had open and the website, and I can click the plus icon here to open a third tab. This time, let's go to my other tech podcast, primarytech.fm. That's my weekly tech podcast. If you want to subscribe, you can go to primarytech.fm, links everywhere. And now let me go back to that tab view by clicking the Show All Windows in the top right corner, and there's a powerful feature here, Search Tabs. So if you have open dozens, maybe hundreds of tabs on your Mac, and you're trying to find that one specific website, you can search your tabs right here. I'll click that again to shrink the tab view. And again, we have our plus icon here, or a quick little keyboard shortcut, and I'll share some keyboard shortcuts throughout this video. Hold the Command button on your keyboard and press the letter T, and that will create a new tab automatically and allow you to go to another website, like relay.fm/MPU. for Mac Power users. Now, if you want to close the Safari window, you can click the red X here in the top left. You can click the minus icon to shrink it down, or if you accidentally or intentionally click the green stoplight or green light in the top left corner, this actually makes the app go full screen. This can help you focus on something like editing a video in Final Cut. I'll typically use Final Cut in this full screen view, but you might feel stuck. How do you get back to the other page? To do that, I'm going to move my mouse to the very top of the screen, and you'll see our menu bar now reappears. Once it's reappeared, I now have access to that green and red button, and if I click that green button again, it will take that app out of full screen mode, back into windowed mode, and I'm back where I want to be. Now I want to take this moment as we're talking about navigating Windows with some other gestures and tools to use on your Mac. If you have a MacBook with a trackpad, all of these apply. If you have a desktop Mac like a Mac Mini, these will apply as well. And you can even do some of these gestures with a Magic Mouse. But let's say that I actually made the Safari window full screen. Well, my desktop with the Notes and Finder window are still on my Mac, but they're to the left. Now I can actually get back to my regular desktop with a gesture. I can take 3 or 4 fingers on the trackpad, swipe from left to right, and now I'm back on my main desktop. In the same way, I can swipe right to left, and now I'm in my Safari full screen mode. This is something called Spaces that the Mac has to help you organize windows in multiple places if you just have one display. You can even add multiple desktops to manage windows. I'm going to swipe up with 3 fingers, and you'll see we go into this different view. You'll see a plus icon in the very top right, which means I can add another desktop that's totally blank. I'm going to click that desktop, And you'll see here the Notes window is not here, nor is Safari, but let's open another application. Let's go with Pages, which is what you would use to write documents or papers, essays. We'll click Continue. Let's create a document. And we have templates that we can start from or just start a new blank document. All right, now that we have our blank document and we're ready to type there, let's say we want to go back to Safari and maybe even back to our first desktop. Well, I'll take 3 or 4 fingers, swipe left to right, and we're back on Safari. Swipe left to right again, and we're back on our first desktop. And if I swipe up with 3 or 4 fingers, you'll see our menu bar slides down and we can actually move our mouse and select one of the other desktops that we have available. So I can jump to that desktop with the Pages icon, or swipe up again, click over to Safari, and you can create as many of those as you would like. It takes some getting used to, but I use different spaces to help me organize and focus on certain work, and then navigate using the trackpad with the different finger swipes. Oh, and speaking of swiping, if you want to scroll up and down on your Mac, let's say you're scrolling a website, just take 2 fingers on the trackpad and swipe. Down to up will swipe down the page, and up to down will go up the page. Think of it as like pushing a piece of paper on a desk. If you push the piece of paper away from you, you would be reading down the page. You can change this in the system settings and preferences, which we'll go over in a little bit. That's how it functions out of the box. Also, one other gesture you might want to use is, let's say you're navigating on a website and you want to go back. Well, you can click the back button here in Safari by clicking this back button here, or I could just take 2 fingers on the trackpad, swipe left to right, and that also goes back a page. I can also swipe right to left, and that will go forward. I know that's a lot of gestures. Maybe rewatch this chapter if you want a refresher, but it's a great way to navigate the Mac quickly, especially when you just have one display and you want to be able to organize multiple windows. Okay, one last gesture actually. If for some reason you have a lot of windows on screen, I'm going to open a bunch of text edit documents. And let's say you have a bunch of windows and you just want them all to go away so you can see what's on your desktop. A fun gesture here is take 4 fingers, I do my thumb and the next 3 fingers, on the trackpad, pinch out, and it will make all the windows go away for a moment. Then you can get to whatever's on your desktop easily. If you want to bring them all back, just click on the desktop, or you can do the gesture in reverse, pinching in. Now, as we're talking about navigating windows on your Mac, if you have a bunch of windows open for a specific application, you can go through and click all the little red stoplights and actually close each window, or you can use a keyboard shortcut. We talked about Command T to open a new tab in Safari. Well, Command W will actually close whatever application window is open right now. So I can hold the command button with my thumb or other finger, click the W a bunch of times, and that will close a bunch of windows. Now on the Mac, closing a window with the little red stoplight doesn't actually quit or completely close an application. There's a term that you might not be familiar with coming from Windows, which is to quit an app, different than closing a window. If I go up to an application here in the menu bar, right now Text Edit is on screen, I can go down to Quit Text Edit. That will close the application completely. If I were to close all the windows, but not quit Text Edit, you'll see Text Edit is still here in the menu bar. And if I look here in the dock, you'll see Text Edit is still an open application. If I want it to go away completely and the little dot go away because the application is closed, I can go up to the application's name in the menu bar and click Quit Text Edit. You can also do that with a keyboard shortcut. So here the dictionary is open. I can go up to Dictionary and then quit it, or use the keyboard shortcut Command Q. It's helpful that here in the menu bar, most of the keyboard shortcuts for apps are actually stated here across the menus, letting you know what they'll do, like undo being Command Z, cut, copy, and paste, Command X, C, and V. But instead of going down to Quit Dictionary, let's just use the keyboard shortcut Command Q. On the keyboard, I'll hold the Command button, click the letter Q, and now the dictionary is completely quit. In the same way with Notes, Command Q, Notes has now closed completely, and you'll see there's no dot underneath the app either. Let's swipe back to our other desktops. Here we have Safari. Let's say I want to get out of full screen mode, but rather than having to go up and click that green bubble all the time, let's see, is there a keyboard shortcut for this? Oh, and in fact there is. If I go to the View menu in the menu bar, you'll see Exit Full Screen is globe icon F. Well, if I try that, the globe icon is down here in the bottom left. click the F button, and that's a way to go in and out of full screen mode on your Mac for any app. Now if I swipe over, I still have Pages. Let's actually go there next. If you're going to be writing an essay or a paper or any kind of document, Pages would be the application to use. Pages can also open Word documents. So if someone emails you a .doc or .docx file, something they saved from Microsoft Word, Pages can open it, you can edit it, then you can even send it back in that format. And let's say we needed to copy and paste. This will be something you probably do a lot on your computer. On a Windows machine, you're probably familiar with Control-C, Control-V. Well, on a Mac, it's Command-C and Command-V. So let's say I wanted to copy this text. I'll click and hold on the trackpad to select the text, and then I'll do Command-C. That copies it to my clipboard. And if I hit the return key to go to a new line, I can hit Command-V, and that will paste. So Command-C copy, Command-X is cut, Command-V is paste. And also Command-Z to undo. Now let's say you're done writing the paper and you want to send this to someone. Well, you can go up to File. Remember, the app has to be active or in the forefront for you to see the Pages options under the File menu. And here we can do Export to. And under this Export menu, let's choose Word, which is a Word document. Someone can open this in Microsoft Word on their computer. I'll click Save, and you can save a copy that's .doc, or you can just send a copy and go straight to mail. This way you don't have to save an additional file on your computer. You can just send it in this format in an email, text message, or AirDrop it, and then you're done. Now, Pages is going to be very different from Microsoft Word. There's some great long-scale tutorials on Pages, probably on YouTube, but just know that the formatting tools are here under the brush icon. That's where you'll change the font, orientation, justification, bold, italics, all of that. And you can always add media, shapes, text, charts, all of that available here in the toolbar at the top. And if we're done with Pages, we can go up to Pages and quit it, or remember, Command Q. It'll ask us if we want to save this document. You can choose where to save it. I'm just going to delete it. And now Pages is closed. Now we've dealt with several applications down in the dock. Let's talk about all the applications that are down there and how to arrange and customize the dock on your Mac. Starting from the left, you'll see our familiar Finder icon. You'll also see the apps. If you click that, that will show you all the apps installed on your Mac. There's another quick way to get there called Spotlight, and we'll do that in a moment. Next to that is Safari. That's your web browser. And if you click it here in the dock, it will actually jump to that application if it's already open on your Mac. Here we have text messages. And remember, if you're signed into the same iCloud and Apple account, your text messages will actually sync, and you can respond to and get all the text messages here on your Mac. Next to that is Mail. Let's go ahead and open that up. And if you want to set up your Mail, I actually use the Mail app here on my Mac. This is going to talk about it summarizing your mail messages as they come through. That's fine. And you'll see the Mail app is blank. We have to add our Mail accounts. To do that, I would go up to Mail here in the menu bar. Remember, it changes depending on what app is open. I'll go to Accounts, and here you can choose to add an account, whether it's a Gmail, Outlook, Fastmail, whatever mail account you would like to add, you can add it here, and then that mail will sync to your Mac. Now, some accounts, like if you add a Google account, will also try to sync your calendar and contacts. And if you want to do that, you can enable it, and that's fine. Some will also offer to sync things like notes. I find that if you already use an iCloud or an Apple account, that it can be confusing if you have multiple services syncing things like notes and reminders. A personal preference, and what I would recommend, is if you have an Apple ID or Apple account, don't sync notes and reminders from other accounts, unless you know you want to do that. For me, I choose to only sync my notes and reminders from my iCloud account. This way I know all my reminders and notes are in one place, and they're not spread out across multiple accounts like Google and Outlook. Just a preference. So here you'll set up your Mail account, and then you can use the Mail app to respond, check, and see all your messages. Again, we don't have time to go in depth on every application here on the Mac. Mail is fairly straightforward, and I do have a video on Mail as well. If you're interested, I'll link above. Next to Mail is the Maps application. If you want to look up directions, locations, you can use Apple Maps right here on your Mac. Of course, Maps wants to know your current location for those directions. I typically choose Allow. And you can choose to enable notifications if you have friends and family who use Apple devices. They can share their ETA, letting you know how far they are away from their destination, and you can get those as notifications. And then here in Apple Maps, again, you can search for locations, get directions, and as we open these applications, you'll see we're getting these notifications in the top right. Again, the first time you open an app, you can choose whether you want to allow or don't allow notifications from each app. just hover over the notification here and click allow or don't allow. I'll allow from Maps and Mail, and Messages notifications are also allowed. Remember, you can click the date and time here in the top right corner, and you will see all kinds of notifications from your messages, from mail, applications you've downloaded. And here in the notification center, you can always clear all by clicking this X here in the top right corner, and then just clear all. But any widgets you've added will stay persistent in that right-hand sidebar. After Maps, we have Photos, which will sync with your iPhone and iPad. FaceTime, which you can FaceTime from your computer, and even call if you have an iPhone connected to your Apple ID and want to use your phone. Calendars also sync, and as you add accounts like Google or Outlook, those calendars can also sync to the calendar application, and you can do things like add events, see your events, and get notifications when new events are changed or added. And again, we get that notification banner. Do we want to allow or not? I'll choose allow for now. The Contacts app is where contacts might be syncing from your iCloud or Apple account or Gmail and Outlook. Reminders. It's a great application. It's really powerful for keeping tracks of your tasks, even project management. I use reminders all the time, and yes, I have an entire video about that. I'll link it above as well. We've talked about Notes already. Apple TV app where you can watch shows and movies from either Apple TV Plus or ones that you've purchased. Apple Music. If you pay for that subscription, you can use that application here. Keynote, like PowerPoint, is a presentation creator. Numbers, like Excel for spreadsheets. We've gone through Pages already. The Games app, which has a bunch of games from Apple Arcade and Apple Apps. The App Store, which we're going to do next, so stay tuned. And there's also a feature called iPhone Mirroring, which if you're signed into the same iCloud account on your iPhone and Mac, you can actually use your iPhone from your Mac, which is pretty cool. If I click that to open, you'll see it asks us to continue and then actually unlock the iPhone. And after putting in my iPhone passcode, you'll see here I can even allow notifications that I get on my phone to see here on my Mac, including live activities like DoorDash or Instacart deliveries. I'll click allow, get started, and now I can use my iPhone from my Mac, even if it's in another room or far away. I'm going to choose Authenticate automatically, put in my Mac password, and now I can use my iPhone like it's right next to me from my Mac. It's pretty cool. I don't need it right now, so I'll quit that, or I could have Command Q'd. And lastly, here in the dock, you'll see System Settings. System Settings is like the Settings app on your iPhone or iPad. There's a bunch of options here. We'll dive into some of these in a moment. But before we do, I want to show you some dock preferences. Down here in the dock, I'm going to two-finger click. Now this is something we haven't gone over yet, but if you want to right-click something, like you would right-click on a mouse, you would actually do that on a Mac by clicking with two fingers. If I click with two fingers, you'll see I get a little contextual menu if I click on the desktop, like create a new folder, get info, change my wallpaper, or change how my files are sorted. That also works if I two-finger click on something like a word here in Apple Notes. I'll two-finger click, and it brings up a huge menu of options. Things like cut, copy, paste, look up a word, check my spelling and grammar, and more. So one click is like a left click on a mouse. Click with two fingers is like right-clicking on a mouse, bringing up a contextual menu. So I'm going to use this two-finger click here on the dock, and if I two-finger click on this little line right here, you'll see it brings up some preferences. You can do things like hide your dock when you're not using it. So if I turn hiding on, you'll see the dock goes away. If I move my mouse to the bottom of the screen, the dock reappears. I'll two-finger click again and turn hiding off. You can also turn magnification on. If you add a lot of applications to the dock, you might want to make them large so they're easier to click. Well, that's what magnification looks like. Let me two-finger click again. You can even change the position on screen. Maybe you like the dock on the right. This way you have more top to bottom space for things like scrolling websites. Well, you can change it to the right side of the screen or put it back on the bottom or left. You can also minimize apps using the Genie effect or scale. You'll see if I click the yellow minus button here, the application kind of has that genie into a bottle effect. Or I can choose minimize using the scale effect and just have it minimize pretty plainly. I personally like the genie effect. Then I can also jump into some dock settings. Now this opens the system settings pane, but jumps us directly to the dock. But there's one setting that I just wanted to highlight. This option is show suggested and recent apps in the dock. You'll see applications that we've opened recently, like the dictionary or text edit. Those are appearing in the dock, even though we didn't save them to the dock specifically. Well, if you want to toggle that off, it will not show those recent apps. Now it will only show apps that are open and active and docks that we've manually put here in the dock. I prefer that. While we're here in system settings, you'll see there are lots of options for pretty much every application, but system settings is also where you can do things like change your wallpaper. So if you want to change it to something custom, some of the landscapes that actually move like videos on the lock screen, you have all your wallpapers here in system settings as well. Now, let's say we wanted to remove an app from the dock. Let's say I don't really use the Games app. Well, I can 2-finger click on that application, go up to Options, and now I can choose Remove from Dock. If I do that, that app goes away and is no longer in the dock. I can also move apps around. So maybe I want the App Store all the way on the left. Well, to do that, I'm going to start clicking and holding with a finger and then dragging with another, and I can move this application wherever I would like all the way to the left. And then you can do that with any of the other apps, dragging them around and reordering them there in the dock. And let's say you wanted to add an application to the dock. Let me open my apps once again by clicking this icon here in the dock, and then let's go down to Podcasts. You want to make sure to follow Primary Tech and Mac Power users in your podcast app. Well, I can click and drag the application from here down into the dock. You'll see it'll make a space. I'll let go with my finger, and now Podcast is in the dock forever. And if you want to remove an app, remember 2-finger click, Options, Remove from Dock. And those are some of the options you have for customizing the dock and the different apps here. Now, another really important feature of the Mac, which will help you find things, is Spotlight. I'm going to close some of these applications, which, by the way, if you want to see all the applications open and switch between them quickly, hold the Command button on your Mac keyboard and press Tab. This will show you all the currently open applications, like Messages, Safari, and keep your finger on the Command button, keep clicking Tab until you go to the app that you want, and then when you let go of the Command button, it switches to that app automatically. Now I can Command Q and it quit that app. I'll Command Tab once again, and now you'll see Maps is no longer there. And pro tip, if you want to go backwards in this list, hold the Shift button and then Tab, and you can go backwards. I'll go to Mail, Command Q. One more time, I'll go to Calendar, Command Q, and now we have a blank slate. Now, Spotlight is a very powerful feature on your Mac that will help you find all the things. Spotlight lives up here in the menu bar. When you click the magnifying glass here, it opens Spotlight Search. It's telling you some tips here. You can do things like Command 1 for applications, Command 2 for files. You can also run shortcuts, which I'm all about. Lots on my YouTube channel there. And even filter and find recent searches. I'm going to click Continue, and this is what Spotlight will look like most of the time when you open it. Click the magnifying glass again to close it, click it again to open it. And if you want to access Spotlight really fast on your keyboard for your Mac, just do Command Spacebar and it will open Spotlight Search. Command Spacebar again and it will close it. I do this all day a lot to access things like applications, files and folders, and more. Now that we have Spotlight open, let's say I don't have an application in my dock, but I know it's on my Mac and I want to open it, like the Journal app. Well, I can start typing Journal and you'll see results are automatically coming up. I see the Journal app is right here and I can either click it with my mouse or click the down arrow on my keyboard. You'll see that highlights the Journal app, click Return on the keyboard, and now that's opening the Journal app. I like using Apple's Journal, save lots of memories. I'm going to turn on iCloud, then it'll sync between my iPhone, iPad, and more, and that's the Journal app. Now I'm going to minimize this for now, but this is a great way, Command Space to open Spotlight, type an application like Music. If you want to filter your search results, maybe just see the applications, with Spotlight open, so Command Space, now that the Spotlight window is open, I'll do Command and the number 1, and that shows me just applications. So I can search for something like iMovie, and it will only show me application search results. In the same way, if I invoke Spotlight with Command Space, Command 2 will allow me to search just for files. And I can even do that after I start typing. So if I do MPU for Mac Power users, and then do Command 2, that will show me just the files and folders for that search term. Or even with my search term still in Spotlight, Command 1, and that will show me applications for that search term. So if you want to find things on your Mac, Command Space for Spotlight, start typing the file, the application name, whatever it may be, and if you want to filter those search results, Command 1 for applications, Command 2 for files and folders, Command 3 for shortcuts, and Command 4 for your clipboard. This is a built-in feature now of Mac where it saves your clipboard history. So if I copy the word podcast, you'll see that's now in my clipboard history. And then maybe I copied another thing here. If I copied something like a password or an address or a URL, but now I copied other things after that. I can Command Space to open Spotlight, and then Command 4, and I'll actually see my clipboard history. This is an extremely useful feature. It's now built into the Mac, and you can click these little 3 dots, go to Settings, which will once again open the System Settings app, scroll all the way down, and you'll see Clipboard History available in Spotlight. Typically, I like saving the most possible in case there's something I copied days ago. I like putting that on 7 days. You can always clear the clipboard history here as well. Now, while we're up here in the menu bar, we talked about Spotlight to find all the things across your Mac, but there's another powerful feature up here, which is Control Center. Here, when we open Control Center, we have access to things like Wi-Fi networks. I can click where it says Wi-Fi and choose a different Wi-Fi to connect to. I'll click it again, and we can go to Bluetooth devices, like Bluetooth headphones you might want to connect. You can also AirDrop files, which I'll show you in a moment. And there's other options here like Now Playing. If I started playing a TV show or piece of music, I can play, pause, and skip forward here in the Control Center. There's also a windowing feature called Stage Manager. I leave this off on my Mac, and if you want to learn more about this, I'll link a video about Stage Manager, but I leave it off. Focus mode. There's lots of options here. I have another video totally on focus modes, which I'll link below, but this easy Do Not Disturb means it will stop all notifications for a certain amount of time. You can also click this little arrow here and choose to turn it on for 1 hour. Like if you're recording a video podcast or you have a meeting, you could turn on this focus mode until this evening or until the end of an event on your calendar. Do Not Disturb is really helpful when you want to focus and not get a bunch of notifications like text messages that might be coming on your Mac. You can capture your screen, turn on or off dark mode. You'll see now I'm in dark mode. Adjust the display brightness and even display settings here. And you can also adjust sound, both volume and airplaying sound, which is a feature on a Mac where you can send sound to AirPlay speakers like Sonos or even HomePods or even an Apple TV. All that's available in the Control Center. Now what makes the Control Center really powerful is you can customize it. So if I click Edit Controls down here at the bottom, it now opens a new window with a bunch of actions that I can add to Control Center. Things like Shazam. If I'm sitting in a cafe and I want to be able to recognize a song that's playing, I'll click the plus icon and add that to my Control Center. And now I can recognize music from that Control Center whenever I want. I can also choose to start a screensaver, run a shortcut, create a new voice memo. I'll add that to my Control Center. You can also add a battery percentage icon. And you'll see here in the left-hand sidebar, all these different applications offer controls that you can add to the Control Center, like starting a stopwatch or timer. You can add that to Control Center. And not only can you add things to Control Center, but you can add these controls and actions to that menu bar so they're always visible. Let me go back to All Controls. You can also search controls up here. Let's say I want to add Shazam, but I want it in my menu bar so it's always available. I'm going to click Add to Menu Bar, and now you'll see here in the top right, that Shazam symbol is now in the menu bar, and I can click it whenever I want to recognize a song. I'm going to click Done and close this editing window. And if I ever wanted to remove Shazam from the menu bar, I can 2-finger click it and I can remove it. Or I can hold the Command key on my keyboard, click and drag it out of the menu bar, and that will remove it as well. I can go back to Control Center, and if I click Edit Controls again, I can click the minus button on any of the controls and remove them as well. And what's really cool in macOS 26 and later, you can actually create multiple control centers. So if you want a pane of just shortcuts actions, or maybe smart home devices, or you want all the utilities like calculator, I can add a second control center with a bunch of controls. I'll click Done, and now you'll see I have my main control center here and my secondary control center here. That's pretty cool. You might have guessed, I have an entire video about Control Center, and that's even customizable on your iPhone and iPad, but I'll leave a video about the Mac right up here. Now, if we open that Notification Center again, in addition to our Control Center, we can add widgets. Now, we've already added the weather widget earlier, but there's lots of widgets available. You can scroll them all here after you click Edit, and maybe you want something like a battery widget that shows my AirPods battery as well as my computer battery. Well, I can add that widget to the Today view or Notification view. Maybe I want to add the ChatGPT widget. You can add that as well. And I'll click Done, and now these widgets live in the notification window, and I can always hide them and show them by clicking the clock and date in the top right corner. Now, widgets can also be added directly to the desktop. I'm going to 2-finger click directly on my desktop, and you'll see we have options like adding a new folder. We can change our wallpaper and you'll also see Edit Widgets. I'll click Edit Widgets here, and now I can remove some widgets that maybe I don't really care to have, or I can add widgets. Things like reminders, stocks, the battery widget, and you can have those right on your desktop at all times. So you can add widgets in two places, directly on your desktop, add or remove, and in your Today view or notification view. Widgets can really provide quick at-a-glance information, and widgets can even be interactive. So you can click a specific part of a widget and take specific action, which is pretty cool. Now, let's talk about installing applications. Maybe you want to download a new application, and you can do that from the App Store that's built in on your Mac. If we click the App Store, I try to download as many apps as possible from the App Store directly. This way, any purchases or subscriptions are connected to my Apple account, and it makes it easy to download these applications when I get a new Mac years from now, or if I want to manage those subscriptions in one place. Let's go to the Create section here in the App Store. Here we can search for an application. I'm going to search for one of my favorites, which is Transcriptionist. And if I want to download this app for the first time, I'll click Get, and then I might need to type in my iCloud password again. Or if I've already downloaded this app, you'll see the cloud icon. I'll click that, and now the application will download. See, it downloaded pretty quickly, and I can choose to open it right here. And you'll also see the application's kind of bounced here in my dock because I downloaded that application and it's now available here. Now let's say I close the App Store and that app is not in my dock. Well, remember, we can find whatever we want with Spotlight. So I'll Command Space to open Spotlight, start typing the name of the app, namely Transcriptionist. And remember, I can always do Command and the number 1 to only see apps. And there's Transcriptionist. I can hit the return key and then open that application. So that's downloading applications from the App Store. The App Store also has things like Apple Creator Studio. Creator Studio is where you'll find applications like Final Cut, Pixelmator. That's like a Photoshop alternative, but is Apple's own app. Logic Pro for audio and music production. I did an entire video on Creator Studio. It is a subscription-based product, so you will have to pay monthly or annually. But if you're just getting started with video editing and music production, there are some apps built into your Mac right now that I used when I first started using a Mac. Let's open Spotlight again, go to Command 1, and you'll see GarageBand and iMovie. I used these apps for years to make and record music and podcasts and to edit video with iMovie, and these are extremely powerful applications that just come on your Mac, built in. Now, we don't have time to do a full tutorial on these apps, but if you want to get into music and video editing, use these apps first, play around with them. There'll be some great tutorials that I'll link down in the video description if you want to get started, but these are powerful pieces of software that just came with your Mac. Now, if you want to learn about more apps, I did a video talking about the 35 apps I install on every new Mac that I use. I'll link that video above. You can scan this QR code or below. But let's say you want to install an application that's not in the App Store. An example of that might be the Claude app. Claude does not have an app in the App Store, mostly because it's able to work with your computer and it needs to be installed outside the App Store so it doesn't have certain restrictions. So I'm going to Command Q, quit the App Store, and let's actually go to Safari and find the Claude Mac app. I'm going to open a new tab, Command T, and let's search for Claude. I'll just type Claude and hit return. Now we have our Google search results, and it looks like there's a result in the App Store, but that's actually just for iPhone and iPad. Instead, I'm going to go to the first option, which is the Claude.ai website, and I'm going to find the Download Desktop app right here. I'll click that. You'll see a pop-up for do you want to allow downloads. You'll see that a lot the first time you're visiting new websites, even things like Dropbox or Google Drive. Make sure you click allow, and you'll see we actually have a download icon there in the top right. This is where any downloads will go when you do it in Safari, and I can click that down arrow, and there we have the Claude.dmg. That's the file format for installing an application on your Mac outside of the App Store. Now, if I just want to go to install this app, I can just double click it right here in the downloads, and that opens this window. This is a rather bizarre thing about the Mac. If you have to install applications that are outside the App Store, you'll see this window, which is the Claude application icon, seemingly with an arrow to the applications folder and not really any instructions. What you need to do is actually drag this icon. So I'm literally going to click and hold with my thumb on the trackpad of my Mac, start dragging it with my pointer finger, and then once it's in the applications folder, you'll see the little green plus icon. I'm going to let go of my thumb, and now that application is copying to my computer. That is how you would install an application outside of the App Store. Kind of wild, that's still how it is. Now that I've copied it, I can close this window, and you'll see here in the Finder, there's this thing here that should be ejected after I downloaded and installed an app. you can click the little eject button there, and you can actually move that to trash. You don't need it anymore. You already installed the application. Now that we're done with Safari, I'm going to use the Command and M letter key to minimize that window. Let's X out of the trash. Oh, and here's my messages. We'll get to that in a second. Now, if we wanted to open Claude, again, it's not in our dock, but again, Command space for Spotlight. Start typing the word Claude for the app name. You could do Command 1 just to see applications, and there's our Claude app. I'm going to click it once to open it, and you'll see the Claude app is now opening. You'll see this window every time you open an application that you installed outside the App Store. Just click yes, I do want to open it. Make sure you trust the developer or the website where you found the app. Now you'll see Claude is here in my dock, but if I were to close Claude, it would go away. It would not stay in the dock. If you want to keep an application like this in the dock, two-finger click that application, go up to Options, and click Keep in Dock. Now you can move it around, place it wherever you'd like, and Claude will stay in your dock even if you quit it. You'll see it's still right here. You can open it and log into my Anthropic account. So that's how you install applications both from the App Store and from a website if you want to install something like Claude or ChatGPT or something like that. Now, I said we'd get back to messages. And remember, if you synced your iCloud account and you already had an iPhone, your messages should be syncing. And if I open the Messages app here in the dock, you'll see all the conversations that you had previously are here in your messages. Now, if you don't want this, you can turn off different things syncing. But if you're new to Mac, I would recommend leaving it on for a while and trying it out. I find managing and replying to messages here from my Mac extremely convenient. It means I don't have to pick up my phone as much. It's pretty sweet. And all your conversations have synced, your conversation history. You can search your messages, send new messages, and this even works with RCS or if you're messaging Android users, which is really cool. And remember, you will get notifications for messages. Those will appear in the notification center, which might be a great opportunity to talk about turning on or off notifications and other system settings. I'm going to minimize my messages windows here, and let's click the Apple icon here in the top left. This is where you're going to get to the system settings. There's also that settings icon in the dock, but system settings is where all the preferences for your Mac live. Now there's a lot to go over here. We don't have time to go through all the settings. I do have some videos about settings you should look at on your Mac. I'll link that video above. But if we click our name here at the very top, this shows us our Apple account. And here, if you didn't want to sync something from your iPhone, maybe your photos or your messages, you could click iCloud right here, and then you can choose to turn on or off things that sync. I'll click See All on the Save to iCloud, and under any of these options, like Messages in iCloud, you can toggle off Use on this Mac. You can turn off contacts or calendar syncing if you don't use iCloud for those things. And Apple also has a bunch of apps that sync your data like news and stocks. So the stocks you follow on your iPhone are the same stocks that you follow on your Mac. But you can adjust what things sync across all your Apple devices. Personally, I leave all of these syncing all the time, including things like passwords and keychain. That is a powerful tool to save passwords. If you're using the same password for all your logins, it's not a great solution. So I use the built-in passwords application on the Mac. I have a video talking about that as well. I'll link above. But I sync all the things. But there is one thing you might not want to sync from your iCloud, and that's Drive. So if I click Drive here in my iCloud settings, you'll see iCloud Drive is syncing to this Mac, but Desktop and Documents folders is toggled off. On my main Mac, which is a big Mac Studio with a big hard drive or SSD, I save folders and I like them syncing, whether it's on my desktop or in my Documents folder, and I save everything there. This way, everything is syncing everywhere. Yes, I did a whole video talking about using multiple Macs and syncing my files, so I'll link that video if you want to see all the details. But if you have something like the MacBook Neo and you bought the $500 version on an education discount and you only have 256 gigs of storage, you might not want to sync these folders. Mainly because if you have another Mac, or maybe you save some files from your iPad and iPhone to the Desktop and Documents folder, those big files might take up a lot of space on your Mac. So just be aware. You can toggle this off and don't sync, meaning any file and folder you save onto your Mac doesn't sync to iCloud. Or if you want to try it, you can turn this on. Your Mac will try to gauge its storage and keep it so you still have some free space left. But keep in mind, that's the Desktop and Documents folder specifically. So if I were to open the Finder window, that would be the Desktop, where you see here it says Local, meaning it's not syncing to iCloud, and the Documents folder. This is off by default, at least on this MacBook Neo that I'm setting up, even though I signed into my iCloud account, but that's what that toggle means. While we're here in system settings, we have things like Wi-Fi, which you can manage from the control center, but you have even more settings here. Bluetooth, network, things like battery and battery health all live here in system settings. Under general, there's a bunch of settings here, things like AirDrop and handoff, which we'll talk about AirDrop in just a moment. You'll also have appearance for things like your display, light and dark. You can play around with these customizations and see how you like it. You can even do things like tint all the app icons here in your dock, just like you can on iPhone, which is pretty wild. You have more desktop and dock preferences, which I showed you before. You have some menu bar options here and how you interact with that. Spotlight, you can change your Mac's wallpaper here in system settings as well. And as I mentioned before, notifications. If there's an app where you don't want to receive notifications, maybe it's messages, maybe it's FaceTime or things like Game Center, just click into that app here in the notifications view, toggle that off, and you're good. You won't get notifications from that app. Also, there's sound options, focus mode, and a bunch more. If you want to add more fingers to Touch ID, you can do that here. Add additional users to this Mac, maybe standard, non-administrator users, you can do that here. And to add accounts like Google, Outlook, and others, you can do that under Internet Accounts. And if you want to add things like your credit and debit cards to Apple Pay, so you can use it to buy things on your Mac easily, that's under Wallet and Apple Pay. Now, two more things, and then I'll show you my Mac setup, and then I'll let you go and enjoy your Mac. Let's go back to the Finder for just a moment. As you save and create files on your Mac, keeping them organized can be helpful. I'll show you my file and folder organization in a minute, but if you wanted to create a new folder, maybe it's a class or a topic that you want to put all the files that relate to it in your Finder, well, I'm going to two-finger click, or you can go up to File and New Finder window, and let's create a new folder. And let's call this Biology 101. Well, now I have a folder where I can organize all my files into. You'll see it here on my desktop, Biology 101, and it's here in the Finder. If instead you want to keep your desktop clean and not have a bunch of files and folders there, I can drag this folder somewhere else by clicking and dragging with the trackpad. Let's put it in the Documents folder. This is where my desktop stays clear. I can create another folder. Let's call this Chemistry 101. I'll hit Return, and now I have two folders. Now you'll see these are kind of getting a little messy. They're not really in an exact grid. Well, you can fix that by clicking this icon here in the Finder, and you can choose to sort by name, date modified, meaning the last folder and file you created will be leftmost or topmost. And I'll choose date modified, and now we have nice organization. Our files and folders will stay in a row. And remember, you can change how you view these. So if you want to go into list view, you can see that, or into column view, which is my preference. Because in column view, now I can go to Biology 101 and create a new folder. Maybe this folder is research, and now I have folders within folders, and the column view makes that easy to see. So that's creating new files and folders. And when you create a document, let's say you open Pages, you're creating a new paper, and you're ready to save this, well, you can go up to File and then Save, and it will ask where you want to save this document. Go to Biology, and maybe this is about blue whales. And now my document is saved, and I can open the Finder again, go to my research folder, and there is my paper on blue whales. Just a quick organization tip. You can choose to just save everything in not a folder. Just put it all in your documents and then use Spotlight to find things. For instance, if I wanted to find that paper on blue whales, I can hit Command Space, start typing blue whales, hit Command 2 just to see files and folders, and oh look, there's my Pages document. Hit Enter, and I can find it quickly. So whether you're organizing things in files and folders and keeping that structure very rigid, or you're just saving everything to a single folder, you can still use Spotlight to find what you need quickly. Now, you can also customize your Finder. So if you're in that biology folder a lot and you want to be able to get to it quickly, I can actually take this folder, click with one finger, hold it, drag it with another, and I can drop it into the sidebar. Now, even if I'm in a different place, like on my desktop, I can quickly get to that Biology 101 folder, and it is still located where I intended. I can even two-finger click here and see the path or the enclosing folders for that folder. So you can add folders here to the sidebar to access them quickly, and you can two-finger click and remove from the sidebar if you don't want it there anymore. Again, I'll show you my folder structure in a moment. Maybe that will help inspire your organization practices, but Finder is very customizable. You can create folders, move things around. If something is in the wrong folder and you want to just click and drag it elsewhere, I can just click and drag it here, or click and drag it back into Biology and then the Research folder. Now, before we get to AirDrop, one other tip, taking screenshots on your Mac, you can do that several different ways. Here on the Mac keyboard, hold the Shift button down here, Command button, and then press the number 3, and that will take a screenshot of your entire display. By default, that gets saved to your downloads folder, and you'll see the screenshot right there. You can also screenshot a specific section of your desktop by holding Shift, Command, and then press the number 4. That will change your mouse cursor to this crosshairs. I can click, and now that will capture just a portion of the screen. By the way, if you want to take a quick peek at a file but not actually open it, you can just click the space bar, and that actually opens in Quick Look, but doesn't open it in an application. So that allows you to quickly open and see something, and even press the arrow keys to navigate across different files, and you can see those files at a glance. That even works with documents like the Blue Whale research paper. Yeah, I would have gotten a preview of what I had written. So just clicking a file and clicking spacebar is a great way to just quickly see what you have saved. Then, if I wanted to AirDrop a file to someone, I can click the Share button, this square with that arrow pointed upwards, and I can share this file in Mail or Messages. And if I were to click something like that, it will literally just attach that in a message. I can type who it's to and send it that easily. The Share button also works sending things via email, sending this image to a reminder or an Apple Note, and you'll also see AirDrop. AirDrop works with pretty much all your Apple devices, also works with Pixel 10 and the Galaxy series phones, the newest ones. And when you click AirDrop, you'll actually see Apple devices nearby, and if someone unlocks their phone, if that person is in your contacts, you'll actually see that person's device show up here in AirDrop. You'll see my iPhone is right here, and let's say I want to AirDrop that file, I'll just click that device. On the iPhone, you'll actually see a notification that an AirDrop is coming in, and I've sent that image to my phone. AirDrop is really powerful. You can AirDrop images, documents, even video and audio files. So it's really powerful. Highly recommend trying it out. Easy way to share stuff across your Apple devices. And one other application I want to show you before I get to my Mac is Preview. If you wanted to open a PDF or an image file, you can actually open it in something called Preview. I'm going to double click a file to open it, and you'll see now I'm in Preview. See the Preview option here in the menu bar, and Preview is actually a really powerful application. If you have PDFs that you need to manage or edit, you can use Preview for that. And you can also do things like markup in Preview. To do that, there's this tool called Markup. That opens a little tiny toolbar over here. Now I can use my drawing tool and literally draw on this screenshot. I can then do things like circle points of interest here in the screenshot and then save this as a new image file. I can even add shapes like arrows and circles. I can type. And so if I'm filling out a PDF form and I need to type, I can do that. And you can even add signatures here in Preview that you then put on forms that you need to sign and then email back. You might see your Mac automatically suggest opening a document in Preview so you can autofill it. That's also this icon here in the toolbar. And here we'll walk you through all the fields where you can type something and really help you fill out forms much easier. That's the Preview app. PDFs will automatically open in Preview. And then you can go up to File and then export or send this via the Share, mail it back to someone who needed a signature, and more. Now there are so many more features and powerful tools on your Mac. We just don't have time to get into all of them. So remember, I've linked a lot of videos down in the video description if you want to jump further into Safari, Notes, Reminders, or just Finder and automations. And shortcuts, they're really cool. If you've never used shortcuts before, I have tons of videos on the channel. I'll link one above. But let me show you how I have my Mac set up. And there you can see the possibilities for all the customization on your Mac. So this is my Mac. It's a Mac Studio, which is a desktop Mac. It's attached to an external display. And you'll see it's a little different. First of all, I'm using a custom wallpaper from Basic Apple Guy. If you're looking for great wallpapers, highly recommend him. I'll put a link to his website in the video description as well. My menu bar is also full of stuff. So I have a lot of applications that I've installed that can run and have access to things here in the menu bar. Things like Stream Deck or Hazel for file and Finder automation. Again, check out Mac Power Users. I'll link the episode where we talk about Finder automations, which is really cool. You'll also see my control center. I've customized it a little bit, but I also have multiple custom control centers where I run shortcuts, which are different automations that are really powerful and I just use all the time. I also have a third-party calendar application. This is called Fantastical. It can live here in the menu bar, which I really like. Things like Audio Hijack, which I'm using to record the audio for this video right now. A lot of other stuff. When it comes to my dock, I actually have it hidden here on the bottom, and I've customized it, removed a lot of the stock applications, and I have things like Final Cut and Pixelmator down here in the dock. But I typically launch a lot of applications using Spotlight, that Command Space and Command 1 to see all my applications. Remember, I have my video about 35 apps I use on every new Mac down below. You'll also see the Passwords app. I have it here and in the menu bar. Remember, saving your logins is really important. Use the Passwords app. It's built into your Mac, your iPhone, your iPad, and all your passwords sync. It's the great place to save it, and it's free to use with your Mac and Apple devices. And then when it comes to Finder, I have my desktop and documents folder syncing across my iCloud and all my Apple devices. Here on my desktop, I try to keep it pretty clean. I have a screenshot here that I saved. I was working on something. And I also have a folder that I call Working. This is where I place a bunch of stuff that I'm not sure what to do with yet, but it syncs because then I can access it on my iPhone. That's one of the benefits of just the Apple ecosystem and iCloud. I can go to the Files app on my iPhone and have access to all the files that are on my desktop, but on my phone and my iPad. In the same way, my Documents folder is syncing across all my Apple devices as well. And you'll also see my Finder window. I have some custom folders that I use all the time, like Primary Tech for my tech podcast, Mac Power Users episodes. All of those folders I have pinned in the sidebar here on the left. This way I can access them quickly no matter where I am. Also, you can change what folder the Finder opens to automatically. I have it going to the desktop by default. To do that, you can go up to the Finder and then Settings, and then you can choose under General, New Finder Window Shows, and it immediately goes to the desktop. You also see the checkbox there for Desktop and Documents if you want it to sync to iCloud. Also, a preference you can set is that windows you minimize, rather than take up more space in the dock, you can have it minimize into the app icon. So I do that. And while I do use Apple Notes for some things, I really love using Bear Notes as my third-party notes app of choice. That's something you can download from the App Store. I also use things like Notion for collaboration with my podcast co-hosts. You can install apps like Slack. I have lots of smart home devices, and you can use Apple Home for that. And if you connect things like external SD cards, SSDs, or external drives, remember, those are also in your Finder window. You'll see them under Locations. These are some of my external SSDs where I save video footage. You might be a photographer and you need to save a lot of footage to an external drive. You can do that here. And also network-attached storages. I have a couple of those, and those are available here in the Finder window as well. I don't use tags very much. I typically stick to folder organization, but tags can be powerful, and you can tag files and folders as a specific tag color, and then the folder changes color, which is fun, and then you can find specific kinds of information quickly. I've also customized my Finder toolbar, which you can do by right-clicking and click Customize Toolbar, and drag different tools up there in the toolbar. So that's my personal Mac. And again, if you want to see my setup and all the videos that I have with Mac tips and things like that, I'll link them down in the video description. And if you want to learn more about shortcuts, which is really powerful on all your Apple devices, I'll put one of my shortcuts videos right up here. Hope this helped you get started. And if you have questions about using your new Mac, maybe you're first to the Mac or you're not sure how to use your MacBook Neo, leave a comment below. I'd love to help you there. And if there are changes to the software update, I will try to update in future videos, and I'm always sharing new tip videos, so get subscribed to the channel, hit that like button. I also have these kinds of getting started videos for iPhone, Apple Watch, and Apple Home, which is Apple's smart home devices. I'll link one of my getting started guides right up here, and also link my playlist with all my getting started guides below in the video description. I hope this video was helpful. Getting started with Mac maybe answered some questions if you are unsure how to navigate and use your Mac effectively. Again, drop any questions below. Enjoy your new Mac, or hopefully this refresher course was useful, and I'll catch you next time.